We are back. I'm your host, Barry Waxler, here with the always lovely and talented Andrea Kay, and one of my favorites is Mr. Urban Miaris is with us today.
Yes, yes.
Yes, and
this has been fun today.
I know. and on St. Patty's Day, we're having a fun show.
Yes, yes. Thank you very much, Andrea.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I have you guys here, because you're the only ones that know how to really have fun with me, okay? So we have our next guest today. We have it's one of our repeat offenders, and one of Andrea's absolute favorites, because if it's not for sugar, it's for coffee.
Yes.
So welcome John Vallas from the Swell Coffee Roasting Company and Swell Cafe. Welcome.
Hi, Barry, Andrea, Irving. Thank you for having me back on the show. I really appreciate it.
Sure. Well, tell us a little bit about, since it's been a long time since we had you on, let's talk about your company. What do you do, and how do you do it?
So my name is John Vallas, and I'm the founder of Swell Coffee Roasting Company and Swell Cafe. We have a retail restaurant and coffee shop where you can purchase our coffee and also have breakfast and lunch while you're soaking in the sun across the street from the beach in Mission Beach.
Sounds tough to me.
Yeah, it's a tough life. And we're also right in the middle of building out a 12,000 square foot coffee roasting production facility behind the sports arena. So we've been moving pretty fast. We've joined forces with the Patio restaurant group. We have 2 restaurants in Pacific Beach and in Mission Hills. And then we're also going to be breaking ground in construction on a 4th restaurant in Liberty Station at the end of this month.
Well, you have to give some kudos to a lady that I have incredible respect for, Miss Gina Champion Kane.
Talk about a force.
Yes.
Yeah,
She's a force of her own.
Gina's been, obviously she's instrumental in the growth and seeing the possibilities of our brand and bringing really good quality coffee to the forefront of San Diego's coffee scene, and establishing our team and really being in partnership with pushing the coffee industry here in San Diego and putting us into the conversation with other cities that are known for coffee. We're known as a microbrewery capital of the world right now, and pretty soon Swell is going to establish, with a world-class coffee roasting production facility, we're going to establish San Diego in the same conversation with Seattle, Portland, and San Francisco.
That's great. How do you get started in competing with the big boys out there? How do you do it?
You know what, to be honest with you, Barry, I just go surf and come back, and then we taste coffee and just put out a good and really honestly, we just put out a really good product. We believe wholly in the quality and the the taste and the flavor and how great the coffee is. And it's funny, somebody stopped me on the sidewalk this morning. I was running to go grab the samples that I brought in for you guys today, and they stopped me and they're like, I realize that you guys have been, changing your pricing structure, and then they were asking me, like, did one of our other competitors, right, near us is doing, they did the same thing. How did you know that they did that? Did you go check it out or whatever? And I said, to be honest with you, we are just focused on us and putting out the best product that we possibly can, and doing it in such a way that people can, access it. We don't do the syrups. We don't make sugary drinks. That's not what we do. We may serve a similar product in terms of the name as far as coffee goes, but we don't compete with with Starbucks or any of those companies. That's not what we do. We focus on the single origin of the coffee itself and bringing out the best flavors to that particular origin, and then really sharing that with people and sharing where their coffee comes from, and then we're sourcing it as direct and as sustainable as we possibly can, and ensuring that the coffee's traceable. And having that really kind of sets us apart from most of the companies to begin with.
Well, we love having the local businesses here versus the behemoths of the Starbucks out there, because this is all about, keeping small business local. So tell our listeners a little bit more. I remember the story we talked about when you came on the last time. How do you find your coffee? Tell us that story.
Well, it comes in from all over the world. Coffee is grown in the equatorial belt between the tropics of Cancer and Capricorn, and that's really where coffee is grown. So I actually just got back from Mexico not that long ago. I spent 10 days down there visiting in the jungles, going to the states of Veracruz and Puebla, and meeting farmers and talking with them, and trying the coffee right off the tree.
Do you have any job applications connected towards it?
Right?
I know. It's really amazing. It's the temperature change was so different. It was also really eye-opening to be connected with, the areas where our coffee comes from. I think a lot of people don't really realize how much of a manual process really goes into that. The coffee beans are, there's some high production, high volume countries like Brazil where they're stripped, the coffee trees are stripped by machinery, but in most parts of the world, these are very impoverished areas, and they're hand picking the cherries, they're hand sorting the cherries. There's places we went and people had mills in their front yards that they were hand cranking to process the coffee.
Wow.
Separating it out, and then the family with the truck is taking the coffee to the mill to be dried and set up for export. Or set up really to be brought to the export. So we travel to the origins and find coffees. We work with importers that are very particular in the way in which the coffee is brought into the United States, and all of the coffee that we source is traceable, if not to the particular tree and the actual elevation itself and the farmer and their family. If we can't get that close, we won't source anything that we can't identify the town. And I say that because sustainable coffee is a notion that is thrown around quite loosely, and we went down to Mexico looking for, I went and visited one of the coffee, I was looking for the farm where this coffee came from called Zongazotla, and it turns out that Zongazotla is a town, and there's a couple of mills in the town, and there's a couple of families that control the mills. And then how it works out is everyone in the town has their own plot of land, and their homes are designed in such a way that they have a drying patio on the top on their roof. So everyone's home is actually designed. It's a coffee town.
Wow, I love that.
It's unbelievable.
Those are my people.
Yeah, so you're looking. We're standing on top of the coffee mill at the top of the mountain and looking down, and everyone's homes all have these flat, very fine concrete laid roofs, tin walls, but the roofs are concrete, and there's coffee drying on thousands of houses going down the mountain, and you can just kind of see, and they're over there raking it and everything. It was unbelievable. And so everyone has their own little plot of land, and they're not, a lot of the farms in Mexico in particular are very small, and they don't produce enough coffee to say, okay, this is from this particular finca, and we can go to that finca, the farm, and try the coffee there. There's not a lot of farms in that are that size. It's a lot of small family farms. So what happens is they gather the coffee together. This I'm just talking about in Mexico in particular. They gather the coffee together. They bring it to a home or some pickup point, and then one of the families that has a pickup truck will take it. We were standing in the mill, and there's people bringing coffee up on donkeys. And this is 2015, and this is still happening.
Talk about a home-based business.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so they're bringing, the truck, the family with the truck is grabbing the coffee from the pickup points and taking it to the mill. And all of this happens really, really quickly. So the coffee, once it ripens, it has to be picked fairly quickly, or it will, ferment on the tree or fall to the ground. Once it falls on the ground, it's no good. And they have to get it to the mill. And once they pick it, if they don't process the coffee right away, what's happening is the coffee cherries will start to ferment. So coffee, in case anyone's listening and doesn't really know what it is, it's grown on a tree, and it is actually a cherry. And coffee beans are actually cherry pits, and they come out green until and so what happens is the cherry pulp and the rind has to be processed off of that fairly quickly after picking, or else it'll ferment and change the flavor. So they do that. They process it. They bag it up and export it into the United States. And it has about a year's life after it's been dried to a certain moisture level, 11 to 13% depending on the origin. And then from that point, it has about a year before it really is not good to roast anymore. So the coffee gets processed fairly quickly, gets brought into the United States, and it's a fast process. So coffee is not actually a year-round crop. We're able to extend the life of it by processing it and drying it out, and then putting it, it typically gets imported into the United States and held into big warehouses until we order it. And then once it's roasted, here's another thing, about coffee that's in the grocery store. The truth is that you really don't know how old that coffee is. Coffee, once it's roasted, has about 2 weeks to 30 days, or 2 weeks to a month of shelf life after it's roasted.
That's it?
That's it. So, and when you're buying coffee in the grocery store, it's a fair assessment to say that coffee has been sitting there a while, and what will happen is when you're roasting that when you're brewing that coffee, it'll typically go flat in terms of the flavor, and you lose a lot of the actual like dimension of the flavor of that particular origin. So I always highly recommend, if you're not coming to us to purchase coffee, we roast coffee and don't leave it on the shelf more than 2 weeks. But I would just highly suggest and recommend that if somebody really loves coffee and they really want to, start to taste the flavors that coffee can demonstrate, similar to wine. Coffee has a lot of dimension, and it's very particular to the origin if it's roasted correctly, and then obviously if you get it when it's fresh, to get it from a local roaster, and support local businesses and support local roasters out there.
That's fabulous. Yeah. You're listening to Close Up on San Diego Business here on KCBQ, streaming live at AM1170, theanswer.com. Give us a tweet at CloseUpSD. Email me at Barry@closeupsandiego.com, or find our page on Facebook. We want to hear from you. I'm your host, Barry Waxler, with my co-host, Andrea Kay, and Urban Miaris, and our guest is John Vallas from the Swell Coffee Roasting Company and Swell Cafe.
I'm just sitting here and keep on talking.
I know. It's amazing. It's fascinating.
I've been a coffee lover since before I was born. I don't think I've ever mentioned this on the show, but my grandfather immigrated from Cuba in 1918 and couldn't find work, so he opened up a coffee. And my uncle, who also couldn't find it in the house next door, did bread. So we had coffee and bread so they could at least feed the family and all the neighbors. And, of course, my dad
that's good, Urban, because if it was water and bread, we'd be looking for you behind the bars, okay?
Yeah,
I know. It's just sophistication that coffee has gotten over recently, I would say. Yeah. In the last 20 or 30 years, it's been great.
Yeah, and there's a lot of bad coffee out there, so I'm glad to know that we've got some good coffee here in San Diego. Now, in addition to the restaurants, where else are we going to be able to get your coffee?
So right now we have our cafe down in Mission Beach. We're also we manage the coffee and tea programs at the patio restaurants in Mission Hills and Pacific Beach. We're also at the Farmers Market in Pacific Beach every Tuesday, and we're sampling out. You can purchase coffee there, and you can try our coffee. We have cold brew shots. Cold brew is a really, really great concentrated 18-hour steeped coffee that we use cold water. It's never heated, and we put it through a special filtration process, and we have cold brew shots that you can get there just to get a quick pick me up, and you can also purchase coffee. But one of the really interesting things that we're doing at the farmers market right now is we're sampling a product that is very new to coffee drinkers. It's called Cascara, or the product in particular that we're sampling right now is Kisher. And it's just kind of based on the origin, what they call it, but it's made from the cherry rind and the pulp of the coffee cherries. So we've found farms that keep that stuff aside and process it carefully so that way it doesn't get dirty. And we make a tea out of it. And so you can come in and sample it, and I tell you what, it's got a really nice, sweet, fruity flavor, and it's also caffeinated. It has about 1/3 the caffeine of coffee, so it's a great drink to drink if you wanted an alternative coffee, but you still wanted to have a little bit of caffeine. But we're at the PB Farmers Market every Tuesday for the summer this year, and we're also having a special event at our cafe. This is a kind of a announcement, but you can stop into the cafe and sign up to be notified when we have the tickets available. But we're doing a very special event. It's a coffee and chocolate pairing.
Hello.
Yeah, Andrea, I knew you would love this. I was going to surprise you on air with it. So we're working with a really amazing other local business that is it's a husband and wife. The company is called Nibbles Chocolate, and they do single origin chocolates. And it's so cool because their product has only 2 ingredients: the cacao and sugar, to make it so that it's palatable. Because I don't know if you've ever tried like cacao by itself. It actually doesn't taste very good. But
no.
Okay, get me lots of samples, and then I'll just trade out with Andrea for everything. Okay.
He knows how to soothe the beast over here.
Yeah.
Chocolate and coffee.
Well, we're running short on time. Give our listeners your website, how they can get in touch with you, how they can find out more.
Okay, so to find the cafe, it's www.theswellcafe.com, swellcafe.com, and then you can also keep track of our roasting facility on swell.coffee. So it's one of those new URL setups. It's just www.swell.coffee. And then you can also find us on Facebook, and we're really active on Instagram. We have a great social media team. But again, thank you guys for having me on. I really appreciate it.
It's amazing. The more you hear, the more you learn. This is wonderful stuff. So great. Well, you're listening to Close Up on San Diego Business here on KCBQ, streaming live at the web at am1170theanswer.com. Send us a tweet at CloseUpSD or just find us on Facebook. And you can always email me at barry@closeupsandiego.com. Let me know what you think. I'm your host, Barry Waxler. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors.